Welcome to Conscious Living Collective, transformative journey in consciousness with company of like-minded people, which is you. My name is Tomek. I'm a scientist, teacher, and transformation coach. In this live session, we blend the latest in the scientific research, the deep wisdom of mindfulness, and the art of fulfilled living. This is, as always, an invitation to have your own direct experience, rewrite your story, and to emerge on the other side with the sense of purpose and well-being. Breaking free from suffering. That's what we will to discuss today. That's what we will meditate on. But before we jump in, I want to welcome everyone to this session, including members of my Patreon program. Hello, Seth. Hello, Anne. Hello, Anne, for the second time. So good to see you here. And everybody else, Karen, Joanna, M, Viviana, Stephanie, Sandy, Tosca, Rylan. How interesting. Rylan said hello in different font. I don't know how even is that possible on comments on Insight Timer. Nimble, all good to see you here. We are continuing exploration of breaking free from. We already had two-part session on breaking free from worry. We all worry. That's a normal human condition. Today, we're going deeper into that topic and we'll explore how to break free from suffering. Suffering is another very common human condition. And if you want to listen to Buddhist philosophy or Buddhist tradition, the whole purpose of our life here is to break free from the circle of suffering and achieve liberation, not from this life, but from suffering. And right here, oh, hello, Parvane, another wonderful member of my Patreon program. And to kick off this session, I just want to set the tone and say that suffering is not just pain. I think it is a common misunderstanding to equate suffering with pain. One is inevitable, and the other one we can avoid. So pain is absolutely inevitable. As we getting physically hurt, as we getting older, as our body deteriorate, we feeling pains and aches, and this part of our existence is inevitable. However, the suffering that, as we understand from the perspective of this session, is mostly mental and comes from the resistance to what there is. For instance, if I hurt myself, if I hurt my leg, and I personally love playing beach volleyball, there's a one part to it, physical pain, that mostly I can manage. All right, I hurt my foot, I sprained my ankle, and it's uncomfortable. But far more than the physical pain is my emotional suffering from the fact that I won't be able to play beach volleyball in the upcoming days and weeks. It's something that, in my personal experience, is far more significant and intense. And on top of that is the resistance to it. Even though there's absolutely nothing I can do in this very moment about the sprain that has already happened and the pain that comes from it, the one part that is far greater is my inability to control the situation and the resistance that comes with it. So the way that we approach suffering and how we will try in this session to understand how we can break the circle of suffering is by using presence, awareness, and most importantly, compassionate understanding of our current situation. So, what is suffering and where does it come from? And once again, I want to refer to the fact that pain is not equal to suffering. Pain is inevitable, and suffering is a mental layer that we add to something, to the pain, for instance, that already exists. And what are those layers? If I wanted to put words in describing the layers that create the suffering, it's the mental layer of rumination, resistance, and adding the story. And for me, being intellectual, that rumination part is arguably the one that adds the most suffering. Why? Because not only I do not recognize the current story, but I create another layer of storytelling around the current situation. And what is that current story based on? Well, it's mostly based on our past experience. It's not based on experience in general, how other people experience it. Is based on our personal experience. And to give you an example of that would be rain. Okay, you want to go for a walk, and all of a sudden it starts raining. Because the story that you are heavily involved in is the rain will prevent me from going for a walk, going for a jog, and spending time in nature. Out of this, there'll arise dissatisfaction, again, mental suffering, because it's based on your story. And now it's not so difficult to consider a farmer who's been waiting for rain for a very, very long time to water his crops that were in a state of drought. And he will welcome that rain and consider it a blessing. So I can ask you right now, from the intellectual point of view, who is right, who is wrong? On one side, there will be dissatisfaction, suffering. On the other side will be elevation and joy. Responding to the same story, to the same scenario, to the same situation and circumstances can be different. And because it's always how we respond and react is based on our personal story, that's why suffering is something that we can solve and break free through that kind of mental consideration. Reframing, we spoke a lot about cognitive reframing of the situation and looking at the situation from a different perspective. And to add another layer to the mental suffering that we all experience and we all want to avoid, or I'd rather say break free, we have the entire, as neuroscientists discover, we have entire network in our cognitive system in your brain called default mode network that is, as a matter of fact, designed to fuel that kind of perception. So default mode network is designed to overthink and be self-referencing. And what is self-referencing? Self-referencing is purely relying on our own experience, on our own stories from the past, without ability of considering the other side of the coin, if you will. So what we will want to consider today in terms of suffering is that freedom begins when we become aware of this pattern in our cognition without being caught in it. We stepping outside of the storytelling that your default mode network is so well prepared and designed to. Okay? So I want to ask you now a very important question. What does suffering look like in your life? And to be more precise, perhaps you can share one story or a mental loop that you very frequently return to. And please put that answer in the comment section. So, what is the story or a mental loop you very often return to? And I want to start with myself. One personal story that I very often return to is that of the state of our world. Somehow, some way, I developed this habit of ruminating on the state of our world and how everything uh, goes worse and worse and worse. Even though, right now, as we speak, I look outside of my window and what I see is beautiful nature. It's a beautiful day. I have this papaya tree, popo, if you will, that is growing right now, and it has so many fruits on it. I just give you a simple example. So many fruits on it, and maybe they are a week or two from ripening. And yet, I hardly ever get up thinking about this tree. Although at least once a day I go and check the fruits and come close to it, but not as often as the fact that things are doom and gloom in my mind. And the word and the words in my mind are important here, because it is not that suffering and the discomfort and the worry and the suffering that appears in my head as a result of that reflection is not necessarily representative of how things look in the present moment, right? Nimble, I will never feel safe or supported in this life. Great example. Thank you for sharing that. This is a very, very common thing. Safety and security, particularly financial safety and security. I'm not sure if that's your case, but a lot of people I encounter talk about that. If you overhear a conversation on the street, 9 out of 10 times it's about money, right? Why? Because we are very concerned about our financial situation. And now that our economical world is very turbulent, I don't want to get into it. You know what I'm talking about. That that worry, that suffering coming from entertaining this story is very intense. Even though we have no control over the financial markets and what's going to happen today or tomorrow. But I'll never feel safe or supported in this life. Very, very good one, Nimble. Thank you for sharing that. Madison, getting heartbroken over and over by relationships. This is coming back to our sessions. It's been almost a common theme of the relationships that we have and how we getting disappointed over and over again, how we getting heartbroken, because most of the time the expectations that we have do not match the story that we have. Now, in terms of relationship, consider a scenario. I've been in over years and years in few relationships. And now that I look back at my relationships, and I'm not trying to say that you are in the same position, I could say that most of the time, the reason why the relationship did not work out, it was not because the person, my partner, was bad or insufficient, so and so. It's simply because I lacked the maturity to see the entire picture and taking my partners for what they were. And I'm particularly referring to my early relationships in my teens and early 20s, when I had certain expectations based on the stories that I've heard and I built and I created, right? And I think to myself, and this is an ongoing journey, by the way, when it comes to relationship. I don't want to say, oh, now I know. I struggle relationships still. However, I think that I've learned something from it, and I adapted and adjusted somehow, some way, in the sense that I can say with confidence that even though the pain is still there, right? The pain is still there. The suffering diminished somewhat. I can say that with a high confidence when it comes to relationships I'm creating right now. I'm not only talking about romantic relationships, I'm talking about relationships overall with my family members and so on and so forth. The level of suffering decreased dramatically, simply because I do not subscribe to the same stories I had in the past. I'm very careful about that. Joanna, wanting the life I had before the death of my life partner. I tried to be here and now, but yesterday is where I had balance and joy. I am very sorry to hear that, Joanna, and there's absolutely nothing you can do about this current situation. And I'm not trying to diminish the pain of that loss, right? What I'm suggesting, and to bring presence to it, and maybe see in the story the parts that you actually tremendously enjoyed, and looking at it this way, right? Rewriting the story. I could imagine, you can think right now about the loss, and that will be the story that you're connecting with, and that thinking about and telling yourself the story of the loss will be the story of suffering. You will suffer. However, if you retell the story of the amazing times you spent together, that will be very different story. It still may be slightly better or slightly from the perspective because that person is gone. But nevertheless, this is a story that definitely decreased the level of the suffering that you experience. Melissa, I ruminate about my relationships even when I know I've made the right decision relating to them. Of course, the doubts. Again, default mode network comes very handy here. Try to look at things from different perspective, intellectualizing it, even though they belong to the past. We all do it. So it's not about trying to remove the stories. It's about creating a new, healthier relationship with the stories, and stop identifying yourself with the story. Recognize you are not the story, you are the storyteller. Listen to your own story, okay? Yes, Seth, ruminating about former relationships or difficult relationships with my family. Yeah, common theme, as I said. I don't have enough time or money to accomplish what I want to do, says M. Another very classic example. A lot of suffering comes from the fact that in our mind, we are not enough, we do not possess enough, and we are not accomplished enough. And why is that? Because the story that we're telling ourselves is the story of achievement, that we define ourselves as the goal. Our life is as good as the goal we want to achieve. And if we do not achieve the goal we want, according to the story that we're telling, our life is worthless. Our life is not good, not enough. What is my favorite affirmation that I share with you so many times? I am worthy, I am loved, I am enough. And it is very difficult if you repeat these affirmations to yourself right now. I I'm almost certain you will experience resistance. I am loved, I am worthy, I am enough. You will experience resistance because the story that you are currently telling yourself is exactly opposite. So there you go, resistance. So in this case, breaking free from the circle of suffering is by looking at the story and really considering validity of it, to what extent it is valid. Yeah, that's my favorite little sharp spot. I poke myself often. That is so great. That is very poignant way of expressing it. We Suffering is by poking yourself continuously, or putting the neuroscientific spin on it, poking the same part of your brain through using your default mode network over and over and over again. That's why the neural connections, that's why the neural pathways, it's so well established there. That's why it's so easy to connect with them. We have a lot of practice with that. Hello, Helen. Good to see you here. Parvane says concerns about the future. Another classic one, right? Default mode network, by definition, is a system that takes the past experience, again, it's self-reflective, which means that consider it past and projects it in the future. That's what it's best at. So now ask yourself, what are your chances of accurately predicting the future based on the past experiences? If your past experience considered someone who had absolutely throughout his or her life had amazing experiences, what will be that person's anticipation of the future? It will be bright and phenomenal because it's based on all the good that happened in their life. But it doesn't make that person more accurate about predicting the future as the person who based the prediction of the future only based on the negative experiences. Neither of them has ultimately the power of predicting the future. What they can only do, they can write a story about the potential future. But what happens also is the more, there's a saying that how you live your life now, the level of happiness right now, it's a great predictor of happiness in 5 years from now. Not because the future will be different or will be more beneficial, because ultimately we are stuck with and again, this is the neuroscientific part of it, we are stuck in a certain neural psychological place or pathway within your head. And it is very difficult to move that take that 30 centimeter long journey from your head to the heart, where not everything is that intellectual. Moving away from the default mode network to the present moment that is not based on the self-reflecting neural network, but it's based on current circumstances and as they are. Okay? Stephanie, it feels like people are being cruel only because my expectations aren't being met. Yeah, that's very true. Karen, money worries with everything going on right now. So if you look maybe a month or two ago, where we are not involved in all the trade wars, where things were not as the tariffs, and so the word wasn't as terrifying, pun intended. I've heard it somewhere that the situation is very terrifying right now because everybody speaks about tariffs and how it is going to influence our life, right? Because of the story that we being told changes, our fear grows and our worry grows, and hence our suffering grows. But take yourself even 2 months from 2 months ago, and you'll see that the level of that suffering that coming from the story that you hear from the news would be very different. And quite frankly, it is a known fact. And I know that for myself because I worry about my financial situation as well. I'm not different to any of you. I know, even though I know for a fact that after each down, what comes down goes up, right? In terms of your finances and the financial situation in the world. That's the nature of the financial markets. If you look at the charts, there were always dips, there were always recessions, there were always financial crashes, and after that, the line returned to all-time highs and below and above and above and above. So that will change. That will change. Zena, being in physical pain from any little stress. Well, so again, we said that the physical stress, sorry, the pain can come from stress. How are we with time? 27 minutes. Yeah, there are so many things when it comes to this topic because it's so close to my heart. It's something that I consider on a daily basis. And one thing from my own perspective, I want to say that even though I experience it on a daily basis, I do not always am aware of that suffering. So what I want to invite you today to is actually bringing presence to what you already feel and see if that presence can actually offer some form of relief to the story that you're telling yourself. And what I like you to include in the storytelling to break free from this suffering is one thing, is to bring more compassion to it. So every time you find yourself beating yourself up in your head, relating to the story you're telling yourself, do not try to change the story, but try to soften it by giving yourself a little bit of friendliness, compassion, so to speak, and see how that's going to go for you. Nimble says fibromyalgia is the label the medical professionals are using to describe the pain I feel, and that is frustrating. I'm really sorry to hear that, Nimble. Okay. Do you have any comments or questions before we jump into the meditation part of our session? It's my pleasure, Nimble. It's so good to be here. Okay, for those of you who are joining for the first time, the sessions of Conscious Living Collective are always consist of two aspects. There's a discussion and conversation part, and there's also the part that that includes meditation. So taking on board and considering whatever we talked about. I'm going to take a very short break, and I will return in just a moment. Just stay with me. I apologize for the small disruption. There was something happening outside of the studio that was very disturbing to the session. I'm not sure if you had heard in the background the kind of knocking noises. I couldn't really start meditation before doing that, so I apologize for the disturbance. Yeah, I'm glad that you feel this way, Seth. Thank you. Okay, so we'll be listening to, once again, Pastures of Green by Weston Brown, wonderful teachers here on Insight Timer, who's got amazing quality to really relieve the suffering of us by bringing to us those incredible sounds that are very, very soothing and cutting through the noise and the suffering of our daily existence. So let me play a Western to you, and I will switch to the meditation screen. Let us begin by making ourselves very, very comfortable. Sit in upright position with your back straight, but not rigid. Rest your feet on the floor in a way that feels supportive. Your hands in your lap. Allow your eyes to close and consider your current circumstances. Not necessarily how they were in the past or how they might be in the future, but how you are right now. Ask yourself if you are in any pain. Is there any discomfort that you may address by adjusting your position, for example? And let's consider this a starting point for our exploration. See for yourself, what are your thoughts right now? Are you in this present moment? Or are you wandering into one of your stories? Do you consider the past? Or maybe wander into future? And when you notice that, simply acknowledge that this is your default mode network, part of your brain, that is designed to indulge in considering the past and projecting into the future. This is absolutely normal. However, this is only optional. You also have another option to ground yourself in the present moment. And the best way to do so is to connect with your breath. Since you cannot breathe in the past or breathe in the future, when you're aware of your breath, you are always, always in the present moment. And of course, just because you intend so, it doesn't mean that your mind will stay that way. So, from now on, every time you notice mind wandering, rumination, self-reflection, simply come back to your breath. And as you're getting used to the rhythm of your breathing, see if you can soften it even more. Softer inhales, slower exhales. Grounding yourself in your breath, and by doing so, grounding yourself in the present moment. And as you continue breathing in and out, softening in-breath and out-breath even more still, add the layer of self-friendliness to it. Imagine breathing next to your best friend, being gentle and considerate, knowing that you are supported by his or her presence. Treat yourself in this meditative moment as you would treat your beloved one or someone that you respect very much. It is time to return. Move from breath into your physical senses that connect you with the physical reality around you, remaining present to what there is, simply shifting a gear. So first consider your sight, brighter and darker spots in front of your closed eyes, your hearing, the sound of my voice, the sound of music. Briefly smell and taste, even though they might not be present or obvious right now. And finally, the sense of touch that connects you with the space around you, giving you perception and shape of the physicality of your body. Connect with your feet on the floor, your hands in your lap. Add gentle physical movement by wiggling your toes, moving your fingers. Slowly and gently tilt your head to the left. Tilt your head to the right. Back to the center. And finish up with one deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. And when ready, open your eyes and welcome back. Thank you so much for meditating with me. How does it feel? Can you see if anything shifted for you in this meditation? Did you notice the moments where suffering loosened a bit or softened? For me, certainly there were parts when I felt the mental struggle caused by the disturbance previously. And then also I experienced, as I loosened the grip around the perception, how things quiet down on their own. Karen says music was very soothing. Yes, Weston Brown has its way with music and with the sound. It always brings calm to my perception, always helps me out. But once again, did you observe any shifts during this meditation that could, again, be described as a softening or losing the grip of the mental suffering that you experienced? Yeah, Joanna says, I was able to let it go a bit. I think that's what we're going for. We're not going for some permanent thing, but getting a taste of it. And by having a taste of it, we can also recognize that it is a possibility for longer, more sustainable change as we practice and we keep rewiring this default mode network, as we putting more emphasis on the present moment, moving away from the future, from the projection to the future, or ruminating on the stories in the past. So yes, thank you so much for this. Sandy, World War II aircraft continually practicing for the Easter air show challenging to meditate today. Certainly, that wasn't the extent of noise I experienced, but I think maybe there's something about collectively about noise, because I certainly had a struggle with that. Viviana says it brought me more self-awareness of what I actually ruminate about. Phenomenal outcome, right? Sometimes we ruminate as in the background, we are not aware of it. The moment we begin being aware of what we ruminate on, it is very easy to actually move away from it. If you're not aware what is happening, how you can take appropriate actions. James, that was absolutely incredibly wonderful. I truly appreciate that. There was 180-degree shift for a better while going here tonight. I'm very happy to hear that, James. I did not go for 180 degrees, but nevertheless, I'm very happy to hear that it happened to you. Thank you for sharing. Tosca, I was able to shift to a peaceful place. Amazing. Well done. Karen, my back always needed support. I did this laying down. My mind thinks it's the boss. First few years of a meditation, some of you may know that already, I actually spent lying down. I could not do meditation while sitting. And now I only do meditation while either sitting on a chair or sitting mostly cross-legged. It's a journey. You have to find out what works for you. But I understand that if you need to lie down for meditation, it's certainly whatever works for your body. You have to take your body into consideration. Okay, I slowly want to bring our session to a close, but before I do it, I just want to share with you a couple of new meditations I published on Insight Timer, and they are very much in the spirit of what we considered today. And one of them is called Calming Mind with Mantra. For those of you who suffer, like myself, from overthinking, for those of you who find that your mind really takes over, mantra, it's a wonderful tool to quiet your mind and change the perspective, shift the gears, as I said. So I have a new meditation called Calming Mind with Mantra. And the second one, it's very new release. It's called Stress to Calm, a Guided Journey. And this is another attempt of mine of shifting you from the place of suffering to the place where it's much easier to consider your current circumstances, even if there is a pain in there. And also there is obviously my course, that is 6 Pillars of Conscious Living. That is a very broad look at our well-being in general. And I use a lot of pointers, a lot of good examples from science and from common sense to bring well-being into your life by considering those 6 different aspects or 6 different pillars of your living. And you can practice them together or you can practice them separately. So I'd be curious to know if there's something that would help you to shift yourself from the suffering that you experience into the place of more understanding, where you feel more friendly to yourself, more compassionate. And also, Helen says, thank you for sharing your wisdom and excellent music taste. I find meditation enduring. It's the only time I can escape. I try to draw back into this space, but unfortunately, external forces, much like that frustration noise for you, but in the physical form, as soon as I come in contact, I am back. I'm very sorry to hear that, Helen. For those of you who experience chronic pain, there is a form of meditation developed by John Kabat-Zinn called MBSR, mindfulness-based stress reduction, that was initially designed for people with chronic pain. So I know how difficult this is. However, there is a hope for those of you who experience chronic pain. Thank you, Parvane. Thank you, Seth. Thank you, Anne. Thank you, Sandy. And thank you for all your very, very generous kind donation. Joanna, Parvane, thank you for supporting my work in that particular way. It certainly helps me a lot to create more and move my mind away from the worries that are happening right now. So thank you so much for supporting me this way. And thank you all of you for your presence, for being here for me. And the more you are for me here, the more that inspires me to be more there for you. These days, instead of one session per week, actually I added an extra session. So we're meeting twice a week. Usually it's on Monday and Wednesday, which is Sunday afternoon and Tuesday afternoon, US time. And I'm planning to continue that because I enjoy these sessions tremendously. I find them very beneficial to me personally. And when I find myself so fulfilled running the sessions of Conscious Living Collective, the more I feel encouraged to give more and more to you so we can spend a quality time together. So thank you so much for all of your attention, your contribution, your support. I will leave you with Weston Brown, and I hope you will enjoy the rest of your evening or afternoon wherever you are. Until next time.